It's time to take a look at what's making news in print and online, and we're joined by Ebony Bennett, the Deputy Director of the think tank, the Australia Institute. Ebony, good morning to you. Let's get straight into the very big week in politics in Canberra on this detainee situation the government's dealing with.
Yeah, it's on a number of front pages this morning. The Australian headline is no apologies, no regrets. And basically yesterday, Attorney General Mark Dreyfus refusing to apologise for the government following the letter of the law in the High Court decision after being challenged by journalists to apologise. And, you know, this is a difficult one for the government. The Attorney-General has a point. Obviously, we want the government to follow High Court decisions to the letter of the law. Otherwise, we'd have a constitutional crisis. But equally, it does appear, you know, that the government was caught flat-footed by this decision. And though it is legislating now, it's difficult to legislate without the reasons of the High Court for the decision, why they decided to overturn indefinite detention. And so the government only got that last week, and obviously community concerns about safety with several of the released detainees facing further charges and problems since they've been released. So I think this one's probably still got a little way to go because, as the Attorney General spelled out, one of the situations here is that it's improper, essentially, for a minister to be using the immigration powers to detain people. That's seen as punishment, and that is the preserve of the courts. So government trying to navigate its way through this still.
Yeah, look, a really big week in Canberra and a very vexed situation. Let's go to Tasmania now, Ebony. And Attorneys General from around the country were meeting last week to discuss this long-standing push to raise the age of criminal responsibility. And now it looks like Tasmania might be taking a step towards that.
That's right. It appears Tasmania will be the first jurisdiction to make sure that children under 16 aren't in detention, and that the criminal age of responsibility is raised to 14, up from 10. So basically there's been a nationwide campaign to increase the age of criminal responsibility because these are children, effectively, that we're talking about. They don't belong in prison, and oftentimes this is catching up, particularly children of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander descent in the Northern Territory and elsewhere across the country. And it really impacts them for life and brings them into contact with the criminal justice system. And advocates have been fighting really hard against this. So incredibly encouraging to see Tasmania take this first step. Partly this comes out of the Commission inquiry into institutional child sexual abuse in Tasmania. And I just think this is a really welcome step that is good for children and good for the community, and will hopefully give a lot of children coming from desperate circumstances or who find themselves in terrible circumstances to give them a real shot at life rather than tying them to the criminal justice system from the age of 10, which is really unconscionable.
Ebony, big story in Victoria broke yesterday. The Ombudsman's report into the state government and the public service bureaucrats. What do you reckon about it?
Yeah, this is really interesting and big news in Victoria. So the Ombudsman, after kind of a 2-year investigation, really criticising a culture of fear and secrecy in the Victorian public service. The report has been pretty much rejected by the Victorian government and the Premier. And I thought interesting that the Ombudsman didn't find kind of a culture of political appointments like we saw at the federal level with, you know, up to 40% of appointments to the Administrative Appeals Tribunal under the Morrison government being political appointments, no kind of culture of that. But a lot of bureaucrats really fearing to go on the record to talk to the Ombudsman, fearing for their career, and a culture of secrecy that I think we've seen operating across multiple governments across Australia that's really corrosive to transparent government.
And I do think that's the thing, that it might be a Victorian story, but one that has a national interest. Ebony, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks for joining us this morning. Have a great day.
Thank you, you too. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to keep up to date with all our latest research and work, sign up to our newsletter. Delivered every fortnight, it includes behind-the-scenes updates from Richard Dennis, an exclusive cartoon from Judy Horacek, details for our upcoming events and webinars, as well as explainers, graphs, and not to mention the latest cutting-edge research and analysis from the team here on the key issues that are facing Australia. Click the button on your screen to check it out.